4, 3, 2, 1.
Now, customers are the backbone of any and all businesses. If you want to get more customers, we've got to seduce you all.
You've got to progress. If you want to attract bigger people in your life, then you've got to become a bigger person. You've got to become better at your skill sets. You've got to immerse yourself into personal development. You've got to find a mentor. You've got to find one or two people that have the results that you want.
Here we grow again. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another session of Untold Upline Secrets / the interviews. Today has been an interesting day. Some great leaders, and I hope you guys have been absorbing the content. But I get to have a conversation in an interview with a great friend of mine. And let me set this up. You know, I met this phenomenal leader and friend and mentor in my life well over a decade plus ago. Her and I have never even worked in the same opportunity together. She's a 8-figure earner inside of this industry, a 6-figure monthly income earner inside of this industry. And she is someone that we call the GodMother, someone who is the go-to, someone who is the plug of all plugs. If you want to know something about what's going on in the industry, she knows it. If you want to be connected with somebody in the industry, she has the connection. And if she likes you, she will kick down a door to make sure that the introduction that you need is there. We have been attached by the hip for years. We talk on a regular basis. And I think throughout this interview, you're going to find out why the industry, not just me, why the industry calls her the GodMother. So I'm going to hit this button and bring on my good friend, one of my mentors inside the industry, Miss Lisa Grossman. Lisa, what's up? What's going on?
Dad, this is so cool. Thanks for that amazing introduction. I don't want to disappoint people, but what went to mind was when we met way back when, we actually paid by the minute to talk on the phone. Now we can sit here and talk to each other in each other's living rooms and bring content to the world and let the world be a fly on the wall while we chat. Isn't it amazing to live long enough to see the stuff we've seen?
Yes, the evolution. The evolution. Evolution is a beautiful thing. You know, I started off in 99. You started off way earlier. When did you actually start in the industry, Lisa? 88. So I'm 25 at 99. So we've got to go back another 11 years. So that's 36 years. Wow. 36 years in the industry. So there's people that are looking at this.
Matter of fact, what is today?
Today
November
is the 8th.
In about 2 days is my 36th anniversary.
Wow. I'm glad I can still add. It's a beautiful thing. 36 years of being in this is crazy, but there's people that know you, and then there's going to be some people that have no idea who Lisa Grossman is. So we've got to start back. We've got to go back even before 88, because the first question that I'm asking everybody is, who is Lisa Grossman? Take it away. Who is Lisa Grossman?
I don't know. I think what Lisa Grossman is just, I love life and I love people. And I've had a lot of ups in my life. I've had a lot of downs in my life. And my father once said that if anybody would ever pay you for talking, you should run to that career. And when I came across network marketing, the first time it was an escape from the monotony of the should path. Did you ever do the should path? I'm from the generation where the kids weren't raised to follow their passion or do what they love. They were raised to do something they were good at that somebody would pay you for.
Right.
So when you win the rat race, you're still a rat. I was in a family business that, if there's anything worse than being in a family business, I don't know what it is. But I was, and there is no escape. And I had a lot of things happening in my life, not the least of which was a stint in federal prison camp over that family business.
Well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to get into all those details.
When I discovered network marketing, it was like an escape. I thought, this is so friggin' cool. All these people wanted to be there. Now, let me just share that when I first got the first phone call, a person who was like my aunt called me, and I thought she was nuts. I mean, People making money everywhere. We're going to get rich. I need to come over to your house. I'm going to show you this thing. And she came over and said she started taking my sink apart. And she hooked up this water filter. And she said, you got to use it for a week, feed the pets, make the concentrated orange juice, drink only this, made the water turn, it's going to be unbelievable. And I mean, she was my aunt. So I did use it. It was a good product. At the end of a week, sure enough, the pets liked it better. When you gave them back the regular water, their nose went up. But I'm looking at this thing and I said, okay, I'll buy one. How much is it? She says like $179. I said, oh, how long does it last? 3 years. How much money do you make? $69, but I can make all the way up to 120. Oh, and I'm sitting here. She called me with, I'm going to be a millionaire. And I'm looking at this thing and thinking about her taking apart my sink and doing the math on dividing $1 million by a bunch of these. But explain to me, this thing's cool and I can help you. I can have some friends that'll buy them, but I'm not seeing your road to wealth here. And I don't really want to be a plumber.
Right.
You got to watch the video. See, even 36 years ago, it was watch the video. So I watched this video and it was talking about the bottled water industry, which at that time filled up a single shelf in an aisle at the grocery store. But they said one day it's going to be big. It's going to take over. Imagine that. And look at the water industry today.
Right.
And this is pennies on the dollar. The dollar a bottle or pennies to make your own. And I thought, well, okay, that's interesting. She put me on a 3-way call, still that third party thing. See, everything, strategies change and methodologies change, but the blueprint is the same.
That's right.
I'm on the phone with somebody and he had been a very successful real estate developer who went belly up in '88 and found this company. And he's talking and telling me like that he's making like $40,000 a month, which back then was money.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I don't understand this at all. And he goes, you have to go to the meeting. Back then we went to meetings. So I go to this meeting in Dallas. There were 300 people in the room. And my biggest fear was that I was going to see somebody I knew. But then I realized if I saw them, they'd see me and nobody was going to talk about it. And I sat through this meeting and it went on and on. And people drawing circles everywhere. And I really was not that excited by what I was seeing because a lot of the people that were involved, they were nice enough, but I didn't see all that many, what I would consider to be world changers on their way to being millionaires type of people. Right. Finally, they stopped talking and people get up and I'm like, oh, thank God. And she says, no, you have to sit down. There's more. I'm like, there's more. Oh, how exciting, more. And all these people lined up and started sharing their stories. And I was blown away. And it wasn't so much the money they were making, and they were making money. They were just talking about the people and the travel and the fun they were having and, being at their kids' basketball games and all this stuff. And I thought, this sounds pretty cool. By the time it was over, I'm like thinking, maybe I could do this thing. I don't love what I'm doing. So I go to the payphone in the lobby. I called my husband. I date myself. There were no cell phones back then, not even for rich folks. They hadn't come yet. And I call him on the payphone and he said, how bad was it? And I said, honey, it was even worse than I thought it would be, except for one thing. And he said, what? I said, these people are dumber than us. They're uglier than us. They're making more money than we are. And they're having a whole lot more fun. And he said, well, you don't want to do this, do you? I'm like, I think. And he said, well, you can do it, but you can't talk to anybody we know. Now imagine that in network marketing. But I agreed, because wifing is just a process. And I didn't know what I was doing. I did it all wrong. I mean, anything you could do wrong, I did wrong because I made myself the issue. I didn't understand that I was a great salesperson. I was signing up people everywhere based on personality, but I wasn't replicating anything. Right. And here's a nugget for people that are listening. I know we all know this, and people that are smart like said do it, but so many of you don't. I went and found somebody who was having the massive success that I thought maybe I could have if I would learn what they were doing. So I didn't go to the people that weren't having success or the people that whine and complain to find out what was wrong. I went to somebody to find out what they were doing right. And he said to me, Lisa, you can turn 50 and you can recruit 50 like that. And it'll grow into 500, but it'll implode. He said, what you have to learn how to do is turn 5 into 5,000. And it won't be the first 5 you find. It may take you 100 to find those 5. But when you do and you learn that, life takes on a whole new meaning. And I spent 2 years not making a whole lot of money. Didn't lose a lot of money. I was just investing in my business, learning. I was part-time. But at the end of 2 years, I had mailbox money. I was making 6 figures a year minimum that came in the mailbox every week because I learned how to build a retentive, consumer-driven, how would I put it? Expectation managed group of people that took their business very seriously, but didn't take themselves so seriously that they couldn't go have fun and inspire other people. And I've never made less since.
Nice. So that was in 88. How long did that company last?
Longer than I lasted with it. The market changed. It was not a consumable product, that 3-year lifespan of the product, but it's still there today. Eventually, they transitioned, reinvented themselves in the marketplace as good marketers and good companies do. And today they, a good friend of mine, my upline, who's still there, has, I don't know, how many customers does he have? Hundreds of thousands. And I think he makes $500,000 a month, not total. That's his residual from his consumer base. People that have been buying for years and years and years and years. So it's still there. I don't know if this is good or bad, but I've never really been with a company that isn't still around except for one.
Gotcha. Very interesting. I love that story. I love that story. So let me dig into that story just one notch deeper. You said something when you talked to your husband, you said, they're dumber than us, they're uglier than us, but they're having some fun and they are making some money. Was that the catalyst of you being able to see other people that you felt that if they can do it, I can do it? Was that the catalyst that made you say, I'm going to try this?
It was, because here's what, and I'll tell you the biggest lesson I learned in network marketing. And that is that people look at network marketing and think my ship's going to come in, and it can, but it's not really true. I looked at people whose thinking had expanded to do something they'd never done, to get something they'd never had. And for a lot of them, it may have been financial that drove them. For me, I was making good money, or what I thought was good money at the time, but I wasn't enjoying my life. I felt like I was a slave to a business, not that it served me. I felt, that if I went on vacation for 2 weeks, it took 6 weeks to catch up. And this idea of being in business for yourself, but not by yourself, of being able to gather a group of people together where everybody was there by choice, and you didn't have to force or push anybody or be responsible for all of their problems. And we fall into that trap too, but you don't have to be. And a light bulb went on for me. But what was interesting was I was making probably around $200,000 a year, 150, 200 when I found network marketing. And after a couple of years, that's what I was making in network marketing. And I made that for the next 8 years. So 2 years not making a lot of money, learning, reinvesting. Then on a part-time basis, I have this mailbox income that's big enough that I'm like, well, what am I going to keep doing that for? I should go do this.
Right.
And then other things happen we'll get into that really don't make me double down on that. But my income didn't greatly increase to anything other than what I'd already made. Because see, I saw myself making $200,000 a year. I'd done it. So it was very easy for me to convince myself that if I learned this new game, this new business, this new model, that I could do the same there. But I never went past it because I had labeled myself, that's what you're worth. That's what the world had told me what I was worth. That's what I could get a job worth. But in year 11, I went from like 225 in year 10 to 1.2 million. I guess in 2000, it was year 11, the 11th year, but I guess it would be 12 years. 11th year, I went to $1.2 million, and that was in 2001 when nobody was doing it. And people are like, well, said I didn't get 5 times smarter overnight. I didn't learn the secrets that had eluded me for 12 years that suddenly came to me. But I started asking different questions. And what I learned in network marketing that I don't think I was really good at before network marketing was to learn to ask better questions and always ask the next question. Don't let an answer shut you down unless you're sure that you have all the information necessary to make a good decision. And when I opened my mind to that, I never built internationally until then, because I didn't speak all these other languages and I didn't want to go fly places by myself. And I had all these reasons I couldn't do it. And then I met people making money internationally. I'm like, do you speak Japanese? They're like, no. I'm like, well, do you speak Spanish? No. Well, how did you build this international business? Same way I built my national business. Just because I didn't speak Japanese didn't mean I couldn't find somebody in America who spoke English and Japanese. I spoke English to them. They spoke Japanese to Japanese people. Then they translated me. The next thing I know is in Japan. For that simple explanation eluded me for 10 years because I knew I just couldn't build international.
So asking better questions and not shutting down when you think that you've got the right answer. Like that's deep.
That's the secret.
That's deep. Asking better questions. That's so deep. Now, there's a space in between there. Both of us, have this background. And the interesting thing about, networking, and one of the reasons why I think that we're such great friends is that we're extremely transparent. Like we don't hide anything. Like this is who we are. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, great. So, obviously I've been to jail and I'm a 3-time felon and it's still on my record. And it took 20 some odd years to even get my rights back, but it's still on my record, but network marketing doesn't care if you're from jail or if you're from Yale. Now, most people will look at you and say, I've heard of Lisa. Oh yeah, I know she's done it. She speaks at all these events and all this international business and she knows this person, that person. And yeah, she is the godmother. But there's this part that some of them don't know that I want to dive into. So in that gap, something happened within that space from 88 up until when? And if you can kind of break down some things for us.
I had some kids. So network marketing, I will say I was never really what I would call a full-time networker, even after I sold my businesses, because when I sold my businesses, then I was dealing with the federal government. So there's part-time, there's full-time, there's I'm not doing anything else, but it's not really full-time. And then there's all the time. And I was in this family business, and you can't escape from a family business. I mean, it's you can't walk out on your parents or your mother.
What kind of business? What kind of business?
It was actually medical health clinics that specialized in weight loss, billing insurance companies. And long after they were gone and sold, we became part of a target, this huge investigation, 7 agencies investigating healthcare fraud. And I'm not here to say that nobody did anything, but as all things are, they had stopped all the FBI agents that were working like on the ports back in the early 90s. They solved that problem. So then they decided healthcare fraud. So there was this task force, and we were being kind of investigated, and I hired an attorney, and they said, you really don't have anything to worry about. And then like 2 years later, in 1985, I read this article in the Dallas Morning News, and it said, Joint Task Force, 7 agencies, 2 years of investigating health fraud, and they've indicted nobody. And the next day, my attorney called me, and he said, all hell's going to break loose because these guys have been working, spending all this money, all these people reassigned, and they got buckas. And shortly thereafter, I was contacted by the feds, and they wanted me to testify against my mother. And then nothing would happen to me because, look, I was 18 when I got into her business. I think they kind of figured out I wasn't a mastermind.
Right.
But if you're from a tribe, so you understand when I tell you I'm from a tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So being a nice Jewish girl from a tribe, if I was going to testify against my mother, I'd have to change my name and go South Pago Pago. That's not even something that you can entertain or think about.
Right.
It's like verboten. So I'm like, I can't do that. So then they indicted me and said, do you want to testify? I'm like, no. And then they indicted my husband, who was guilty of marrying the wrong girl. He had nothing to do with nothing. And at that point, when it's the U.S. government versus you, I made a deal which was acceptable to me because the risks, the risks were too high. And they offered me a deal, which was basically 1 year in a federal prison camp, pay a fine. They weren't going to go take everything I owned. They were going to let Steve off the hook. He could be with the kids. And I'm like, okay. And I did that deal. But then again, I slipped into human nature. What would you do if you're watching this, if you have to go to federal prison camp? A smart person, if you're scared and don't know what that is, would go find somebody who'd been there and say, what's it like? Tell me about it. Mentally prepare, but not me. I drove myself nuts with prison movies, watching things on television and being up at night and all the things that were going to happen to me. And if our enemies could do to us what we can do to ourselves, when we let our imagination run wild and create nightmares for ourselves, our enemies would really have something. Mm-hmm. So go through all of that, got my mother off the hook, where she could just do 5 years probation and pay a much bigger fine. I got a lot of credit for that with a lot of people. But the truth of the matter is, if the idea of going away was tough, the idea of going away with my mother sounded like hell on earth. So it was out of self-preservation, but the family thought I was great and a wonderful daughter, and that worked out well. So I did it. And federal prison camp is federal prison camp. There's not really any fences there to protect you from the outside. It's all white collar girls, friends of drug dealers and judges that went wrong and, white collar stuff, because they figure it's not about the being put into a horrible environment. It was like a wayward camp for girls. It's about the humiliation when you do come from fairly affluent background, and about the loss of liberty. You see, so I went, and the first 3 months, I took self-pity to an art form. I mean, if I go home or I go big, and I was miserable to be around. I was miserable. Woe is me. I had the whole case building thing going. And then a couple things happened. One, Princess Diana got killed. She died. And I was watching her funeral and her kids and everything. And I thought, this is friggin' crazy. This is a year, and I've already done 3.5 months of it. This ain't so terrible. And then I realized that the camp was kind of divided into two kinds of people. People that were very upbeat. They were helping everybody. They were really living in gratitude. And coincidentally, said these people had long sentences. There were people there that didn't start in a prison camp. They got like 5 years, and they got like 10 years. And until you get down to 5 years, you can't get to a prison camp. Oh, and they were, girls that married the wrong boy, like drug dealers, and didn't want to testify against them. And then there were people that were miserable and awful and unhappy, and they really had short sentences. And I was embarrassed because I was in that second group, and then it's not how I saw myself. So I went down to the track to talk to a lady by the name of Kim. She was amazing. And she had gotten 7 years, and she was just the life of the party. And in a good way. I mean, she just couldn't do enough for people. She was probably one of those servant-based, faith-based people that I have ever met. Who owned her choices. I mean, she married this guy, so she would have testified against him, and then he threw her under a bus, and she never blamed anybody else. So I made bad choices. And I started thinking about that. I mean, I made bad choices. I was a victim of bad choices. Nobody held a gun to my head to stay in that family business. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't particularly think it was illegal, but I was miserable there, and I could have walked out the door, and I didn't. And how often in life do we find ourselves where we don't want to be simply because we won't own where we're at and decide to do something different? So I said to her, how are you the way you are? And she said, how much time do you have left? This is the secret to going from 5 times my income, was this. How do you do what you do? How can you be the way you are? You're like, Mary Poppins and Polly Purebred and Sally Sunshine all rolled up in a uniform, and I just don't get it. And she was authentic. So I knew it wasn't phony. And she said, Lisa, how much time do you have left? And I said, well, 9 months and 9 days. She said, let me tell you something. 9 months and 9 days is going to get here. It's going to come, no matter what you do. She said, now you can either do the time or you can let the time do you. So what you have to decide is 9 months and 9 days from today, when you're walking out of this place, do you want to look back on the last 9 months and 9 days and think about that you were miserable and sucking oxygen out of the room and accomplishing nothing? Or do you want to look back and say, I made really good use of my time? And I learned, I took this opportunity. And I'm like, opportunity? She goes, look for the opportunity. And I said, okay, that makes some sense. And from that moment on, I decided that day I was walking the track with her, I was kind of like, so this is what a track looks like. Now, you're smart. And I've been known to be smart at certain things. And people that are good at things have a way of avoiding things they don't want to do, but looking like they can do everything. So my workout experiences up until then were being really sad at the fact that you can't hire somebody to do it for you. So I decided I was going to run 5 miles. And having never walked 5 miles really since camp, that was interesting. And it reminded me that we measure by progress, because unless you have a bear chasing you, if you've not run 5 miles, you can have all the determination, desire, positive attitude that you want, and our body is not going to go from 0 to 5 miles. And I remember the first time I, walked the longs and ran the shorts of a quarter-mile track. I remember when I ran the longs and walked the shorts. I remember the first quarter mile I ever ran. I remember the first mile I ever ran. I never made it to 5. I made it to 3.5, and then the ragweed season set in. But I would have never gone half a mile. And here I was running 3.5 miles. I learned to make kimchi. I worked in the interlibrary loan. I took cosmetology and learned how to cut hair. If there was a program, I got in it. I taught reading. I started this from I worked with the illiteracy program. I started this personal development thing called from survival to success to significance. All stuff I stole from network marketing that I had in my head that I repurposed. And everything was great. And about 3 weeks before I'm supposed to go home, the do-gooders come to town. I call them the do-gooders because in my heart, I believe that they are there with good intentions. But I've been doing pretty good these 8.5 months now. And prison's a great equalizer, prison camp. Everybody has the same clothes. Everybody has a job. It doesn't really matter where you come from. It doesn't matter where you're going. Your experience is under your own control. Sound familiar?
Yep.
So I go to the do-gooder meeting, and I'm there with about 25 other women. And they say, are you afraid? Congratulations, you're going home soon. Yay. So tell me, is anybody afraid that your spouse is not going to talk to you? I'm like, I'm not afraid of that. Is anybody afraid that your kids are going to disown you? I'm not afraid of that. Is anybody afraid that you're not going to be able to get a job, that nobody's going to employ you, that you're going to be living in a box under a bridge? By the time I left this meeting, I was hysterical because Steve was going to divorce me. The kids were going to disown me. I was going to be living in a box under a bridge, and I didn't know what to do with myself. Which, if you think about it, is what we all do. We let these people get in our head, because I didn't walk in there with one of those fears. So I'm up all night, and it's a Saturday. So it's the next day is Sunday, and I'm like, okay, Sunday. Well, we had this tough love Army chaplain. Tough love, as love can be. And if I'm boring all of you, I want you to know that what she taught me and I'm going to share with you has been the model for my success. And whenever I get too far away, I come back to it. So I go marching down and sitting on the bench waiting for her to come in. And she's like, Grossman, what's the matter with you? Because I'm like weeping. I'm like, Steve divorced me and the kids are going to leave me and put me under a bridge. And she's like, oh my God, shut up. And I'm like, okay. And she sat down and she said, Grossman, I don't have time for this today. I have 3 services today. I'm going to do what I never do. I'm going to solve all your problems for you. But the problem with that is when I give people all the answers, they usually don't listen. They don't apply. They don't implement because it's too easy. So if I give you all the answers, will you give me your word? You're going to hear me and do what I say. I'm like, yes. And she said, okay, here's the deal. She said, I'm going to put this in business terms because you love business. She said, you are living your life like it is a sole proprietorship. And it is not a sole proprietorship. She said it is a partnership. And while this is going to really hurt your ego, I've got news for you. You are the junior partner. She said, like all partnerships, when the partners don't understand their different roles and responsibilities and they start trying to do the other person's job, it all goes down in a handbasket. She said, so your job is you're going to go home. Every day, you are going to get up. You are going to shower up. You are going to shine up. And you are going to show up with a smile on your face and a belief that if you do that, your senior partner is going to take care of everything else. She said, I'm telling you, you're going to have a better relationship with your kids than you've ever had. You're going to make more money than you've ever made. Your husband and you are going to get along in ways you never did before because you survived all of this. And, you're not going to believe what's going to happen in your life. She goes, you believe me? And I'm like, no. She goes, can you do it anyway? And I said, she said, act as if you shall have faith and faith shall be given to you. I'm like, oh, I know this one. Fake it till you make it.
That part.
And she goes, can you do it? So as I was walking back, I said, you know what? It's better than my plan to make curtains for the box under the bridge. So I came home and I started calling all these people I've met in network marketing. And I said, this is where I've been and I need a job and I think I can help you because I understand business. I can look at your policies and procedures. I can help you with your comp plan because I have learned all this from my business background when I've been playing with network marketing. And it's interesting. People figure if you're going to be honest about that, coming back to your transparency, what are you going to lie about? Right. And people inherently want the opportunity to give somebody else a break. And if people believe you're honest with them and that you'll give 100%, they will often feel good about themselves. And because everybody wants a second chance and deserves one if they're willing to work for it. I had a lot of people, this was 98. I consulted for like 2-3 years. One day I was consulting for a little company and met a very good friend of mine by the name of Terry LaCour. We've been working together ever since. And I saw some challenges with that company. And when I was helping them out, they invited me to help by saying, you're our friend. Can you help us? Translation, we don't have any money to pay you. But I was doing all right consulting. So I was helping. And he said, can you go out and tell the story? Because people aren't telling the story. I'm like, build this thing I haven't built in 5 years, 6 years. And he goes, you can do it. And I said, sure, okay. And that was it. That was late 2001. I made 1.2 million and the rest is history.
Wow. You unpack so much in that I got to recap some of it. Number one, you showed what integrity was because, hey, I'm not throwing my mother under a bus. As somebody who's never been in jail before and going to a federal penitentiary, whether it's a camp or not, it's irregardless of the fact. It's the fact that it's on your record. You're going to be locked up. And hey, if you turn
you can Google it today and find it.
Say what?
You can Google it today and find it.
I'm sure. The whole point is that, hey, if you are willing to sing, you can go home and not have to worry about anything. And you didn't do it. You gain respect from that, a large amount of respect. Secondly, you took that time and you applied it. You learned some things within that time. But the biggest thing that I want to unpack from this, because you made reference every time back to this industry. And the biggest thing that I want to unpack from this is a perfect monkey branch into the next question. And that is really simple. How important is storytelling in our industry? Because you are a master at it. How important
storytelling is everything. And I think the reason is not just because people have a hard time accepting very blunt statements, facts, however true they may be, but also they don't give people, they sound more like commands, and stories give people an ability to relate and understand. Right. You can raise a child and out of fear, the because I said so thing will work for a while, but when they get to a certain age, because I said so, you don't see their face when they walk out the door stomping their feet. But have a conversation with them and it opens up lines of communication. What is really so interesting to me about that whole experience is that most of us live in a prison of our own making. the biggest lesson that I think we all have to learn, and this comes out of Viktor Frankl's book, but I understood it. I read the book, many, many times. If you don't know who Viktor Frankl is, Google him. It's a book worth reading. And he used to always say there's such a difference between liberty and freedom, but people miss it. Well, when you were in prison, when I was in jail, when you were in jail, I was in prison, your liberty's taken away. That's your ability to come and go as you please. That's liberty. But you have the freedom to choose your response. You have the freedom to choose what you're going to do in these circumstances. You have the freedom to make one more call, because it could be the call that changes your life, or let the last person who insulted you be the last call you ever make and walk away feeling bad about yourself. And I never understood how free our minds really can allow us to be, and how much we imprison ourselves within our own thought processes.
That's deep. That's deep. How have you showed us one step of it here, but probably here's a better way to ask this question. How can other people, leaders as well as brand new people that might be looking at this, how can they apply stories that they may have had inside of their life, or stories they've borrowed from other leaders that can help relate to their prospect?
The power of storytelling is it humanizes it. So if you want people to see you as a human, then you have to allow them to see where you've been vulnerable, because you have to give other people the permission to trust you with their vulnerabilities. And if you're not willing to share where you've come from, it doesn't really matter where you are. It's like growing up. I don't know if you ever met these people, but in high school, do you remember the kids that were born with a silver spoon in their mouth? They all went to the same college. They came back to the same town. They married their high school sweetheart, and everybody would look at them with such envy. And then you go back 30 years later and you realize they have no story to tell. Who cares if they're successful? If you are a star running back and everybody's seen you in the end zone dancing with the ball so many times, then the first thing that's going to come up is, oh my God, he's got the record for this many touchdowns, and oh my God. But if they send you out to talk to that high school kid to get him to see himself there one day, he doesn't care how many times you've been in the end zone unless you can take him back to the 5-yard line and take him down that entire field with you, so that he can walk that journey with you, so that he can see it for himself. That's the power of story. And if you haven't walked that yardage yet, but somebody's shared that story with you, you can then share with them their story and how it inspired and affected you. So stories have the ability to move people. And if you don't believe that, why do you think TikTok and all these things are blowing up? It's because people more and more are learning how to move people with stories. And if you're not sharing stories, then you are not being true to yourself and other people, because trust and believe, you've got great stories that can inspire people. And in a vacuum of no great inspirational stories, there are stories out there that can move people to not being so nice and not being so wonderful. And if you are not sharing your story and allowing people to see you as a human that they can relate to and want to be like, or want to work with, or want to lock arms with to do something great, then you are adding to the fact that they may fall into a group of stories that makes them do something not so great.
Oh, that's deep. That's deep. You know what it made me think about? I think it was 2009. I remember going to a Jeffrey Combs event, Breakthroughs to Success, which was like a Narcotics Anonymous meeting for entrepreneurs. Basically, everybody throwing up on themselves and all their problems and all this good stuff, about maybe 80 people in the room. And I was coaching with Jeffrey at the time, and Jeffrey put me in front of the room and he said, "Say it, tell your story." And I was like, yeah, I was in the mortgage industry, and I came from the mortgage industry, into network marketing full time after, a stint.
You gave your resume.
Right. But I was talking about success to success, because I was in the mortgage industry and I did really, really well in the mortgage industry. Then I left before it tanked. Then I came to MLM and I immediately became successful at the same time. And he was like, "No, Sid, tell him a story." And I said, "Yeah, I was in the mortgage industry and I came from the mortgage industry and I branched over to this company. We're selling voice over internet and, the phone services at the right time." He was like, no said. Tell them about going to jail. Tell them about selling the cocaine. Tell them about the gun charges. Tell them about running from the police. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, bro, why are you telling my business in front of the room? Like, why are you dry snitching in front of the room? And he's like, say it, tell the story. And I'm like, well, you already did now, whatever. So I throw up. I tell everybody the story, Lisa. And this is a testament.
And everybody loves you at the end of it, right?
It's a testament to what you're saying. 72 hours later, out of the people in that room, 19 plus people joined my business. Mind you, I never pitched my business.
I know.
I never pitched it. And I called Jeffrey and I said, why did all these people reach out to me? Why did all these people end up joining my business? He said, because you became a human. You became a human. They looked at you and said, if he can do it, I can do it. And I never forget him saying, he said, why do you think Rocky was such a good movie? And I said, I don't know. And he said, because everybody loves a good comeback story.
And everybody loves the truth.
Yes.
Well, it's interesting because I used to use, when I would teach, I would say to people, you know, if you want to understand why stories are great, every single rom-com, and I know you're a guy and I know you like your action flicks, but you can admit between us that you have had a tear or two with a rom-com. We all know the plot. Every one of them. Boy meets girl, boy and girl fight, boy and girl get together, boy loses girl over some misunderstanding, girl meets someone else, is about to go off with someone else, boy comes back at the last minute and girl returns to boy. 1,000 times we've seen that plot. But people love it because they're emotionally invested in seeing the boy win. But if it was boy meets girl, boy and girl fall in love, boy and girl get married, boy and girl live happily ever after, what are we going to do with the other hour and 45 minutes that people are in the theater? And who cares about that story?
Right.
Like, people can't care about you unless there's something to care about. And while we are impressed and in awe and often seduced by financial success, it doesn't really make somebody care about who we are. It makes somebody care about what we've done.
Right.
But when we're willing to show people who we were and who we became and the journey to what we've built and what we've got, suddenly it's something that they really want to be a part of.
No, that's real. That is real. That's humanizing us so much. Wow, Lisa, we're so deep into this already. We got so much to unpack here because your knowledge is 10, 20, 30 fold, you know, and I already know how you move. So we've got to make this count because you've got so much value.
Whatever you want.
So let's shift gears here for a second. And I want to start off with a question that I already know the answer to, but there's a reason why I'm leading to this. Lisa, how many languages do you speak?
Truthfully, one, but I can fool around in Spanish. I can fool around in Chinese.
You can fool around.
But as far as being able to have a real conversation beyond, you know, where's the bathroom and he'd like a beer, English, one.
Right.
And the British would tell you I don't even speak that.
So here's the reason why I asked you that question. Because you're somebody that I know that has an enormous international business to the point that I remember talking to you, said I'm going to be in Asia for 6 months. I'll be back here. I'm going to be in Korea for 3 months. I'll be back here. I'm going to be over here for 5 months. I'll be back. How does someone like you who travels between a home in Texas and another home in Arkansas, right? Home in Texas, home in Arkansas, but all this business overseas, especially in Asia, when you don't speak Mandarin. So you give us the tea. How is it possible?
It's interesting because one of the things that I love about network marketing is, and I guess this is true in any business, but most people don't see it. Said you and I are friends, and you know how to drive a boat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have boats and I can drive them, but you wouldn't want to get on when I'm driving. But we're friends and you know how to drive a boat. So if I want to get people on a boat and you drive a boat, is it important that I can drive a boat? Not really, because you are willing to loan that skill to me. Or if I have people that want to learn how to drive a boat, I can also even say, you know what, said I can't drive a boat. I got these people who want to learn how to drive a boat, but you were telling me that you got all these people that really would love to have chicken matzo ball soup, and I make a mean pot of chicken matzo ball soup. So why don't we get everybody together? I'll cook. You go give them a boat lesson. Now we've probably trained 3 times as many people on 2 things we wanted to do for the mutual benefit of both of us. So in network marketing, you have the ability to go bring to you people that, you know, if everybody's good at the same thing, what's the point in everybody being there? You know, you're going to be, so if you can go know what you're good at, know what your desire is, find other people who are good at other things that are necessary to make that formula work when you have mutual goals, you can build a family all over the world. And literally, you don't need words. You know, my business, a lot of people speak English today, or the United States is a melting pot. So let me back up. If you live in North America, there are 10 million 10 million Chinese speakers in North America. There are Russian speakers in North America. There are Ukrainian speakers. There are Spanish speakers, everything. And while the older generations may not really be comfortable in English, the kids, who a lot of them are our age now, because they're, you know, because it's a multi-generational thing, but certainly the younger kids, these online kids, they speak both, and they speak both natively. You know, grew up speaking one at home and learned the other one in school. So they're the bridge. And the beautiful thing about our business is your story is powerful to people you don't know, and to people that you do, it's like they've heard it already. So when you find somebody who can be a bridge to a Chinese group for you, let's say, they put you in front of that group, and suddenly you're an expert edifying them, and they listen to every word you say because they were brought by somebody that you know, and you could do great things together. So for me, love on people, hugs work in every language, smiles are universal. Remember that, you know, being a salesperson, sales are certainly a part of business, but if you think long term and you play the long game and you treat people the way that you would want to be treated, whether they do business with you today, now, or ever, it comes back to you tenfold. So like you and I, we've never really had the the thrill of doing the same project together.
Right.
But we've done a million things together because there's nobody, you know, when I have an idea, I go to you because you're going to tell me the truth. You're going to make it better, you know, and you get emotionally invested in it because, you know, when you know you're successful, what do you have left but to leave a legacy? And the only way you can leave a legacy is if you're willing to share what you know and what you've done with people that are going to be here after you're gone. There's no other way to do it.
Good point. Good point. That's deep. That's deep.
And we didn't have Facebook and all this. So for those of you who don't think you can build internationally, you can build internationally without ever leaving your living room and get on planes later.
True.
I will say this though. I built, before all the social media, I built in the Chinese market in the United States. And I was doing big meetings that were translated in Chinese in the United States. By the time I went to Taiwan, I had 10,000 people in my group over there.
Wow.
So you chase the business by phone, by message, by all these tools we have today, but you solidify it by going in person.
Right. Right. So to tag on to that, tell everybody, why is it important that they have an international business?
I think it's important that you have as diverse a business as you can on every level. You know, when your business starts out, any business really, it's going to be a group of people that are very reflective of who you are or where you're at in your lifetime at that point. Because it's people you're seeing every day, and it's a small cross section, and that's great. But for a business to really have no limits, it has to be appealing to more than just what appeals to you, which in the beginning, most of the people what appeals to you that you're talking to, it's going to appeal to them too. So I think that you have to have all kinds of men, women, old, young, because the business works for everybody. But then again, now you've got diversity covered in the fact that you've got a lot of thriving different communities and opinions working together to build something great for all. But things happen in countries. There are depressions. There are there are shipping delays, there are changes in regulations, there are things new that come to town here that get a lot of people excited, but they just love what you're doing in Korea. The more diverse and far-flung you can be, the more leadership you can develop, the more outposts of expansion that you can have on every level, the more secure your business is, and the closer you are to building not just an income, not just a paycheck, but a legacy and an empire that not only can take care of your immediate people that you know, love, and care about for years to come, but can influence the world at large. And I am one of those cockeyed optimists who believes that we can make the world a better place by providing people with a different way of looking at things. And for so many people around the world, until you show up and show them there's a different thing they can look at, they believe the way it has been is the way it always has to be. And in America, they may not sound so bad, but there are other countries that if they believe the way it is the way it always has to be, I don't know how they get up the next day. So you are a hope broker.
You're a hope what?
Hope broker.
Hope broker. I love that. You're a hope broker. Oh, that's good. Oh, I love the zingers. I love it. You're a hope broker. That's good. That's really, really
Or
good.
a hope ambassador. Yes.
Very good. I like that. I like that. So let's take it to another, rabbit hole really quickly. You spent a lot of time in this industry. You're still actively in it, obviously, still actively building amongst other projects that you have going on in your life. And you've seen a lot of changes. And one thing that you and I have been talking about lately is the dynamics of how the industry is changing from just straight recruitment to customer acquisition. So,
you know what's interesting about that? I would say the industry is finally no longer denying what was always a reality. Think about it. The most successful companies in the space, if we are to look at long-term companies, what would they have been? Like Pampered Chef and Tupperware and all these party plan companies we kind of like we're too good for, or even the legacy companies today. How many people use new skin products but are not involved with new skin in any way?
right.
I think if you think about it, what business could possibly be successful? Let's say you own a clothing chain. If you have lots of stores all over the world, but the only people in the store are the people that are there talking to each other that work for the store, and nobody's buying any clothes. Mm-hmm. So I think that the industry kind of didn't want to accept that reality, a part of it. And people that were good at talking, and there were so many people to go through, it was kind of a chase and replace game. But as social media has made the world more accessible and the world smaller and shortened the lifespan of business models that are not sustainable in reality long term, people have started to say, well, what creates longevity and sustainability in a company? Well, goodwill, a good name. Where does a good name come from? Not the salespeople. Well, we don't know who most of the people that work for Amazon are. We don't know who most of the people that work for Nike are. The goodwill comes from customers. And customers that are treated right talk about things. Nothing ever. This is one thing I think that the industry's finally woken up to. You can't make, only customers can make something go viral. Only customers. An influencer can go do a thing today and get a ton of people to buy, sell $1 million in one live, I guess. But that's a bunch of people that bought something.
Right.
Right. Customers telling other customers is what makes things take on a life of their own. How many things have you bought because somebody asked you to and they're sitting in your house? And how many things have you bought because everybody was talking about it? And that's really the thing. So yes, the industry has finally realized that there is a sequential path of building a business that, when applied, works for all, not just the talented, builds logically through different stages of development. And it's just like a giant funnel. The world of people that have never heard about this product, you invite them to take a look. Some say no, some take a look and say, I'll try. Of the ones that try, some say, I'll buy. Of the ones that buy, some say, you know what, I like a lot. I want to save money. I'm going to get on one of those continuity programs. I'm going to share it because I can earn prizes. And this is real commerce. Forget network marketing. So we got trisumer, we got consumer, we got sharesumer. Now we got, hey, I can make a little bit of money. Let me go share this for money. I'll be a sellsumer. And now we've got an influencer, somebody that says, I'm going to not judge anybody. I'm going to take it out there and let everybody say yes to the next step if they want. And if they don't, that's okay too. And I'm going to work with those that are raising their hand, but making sure I'm creating a great environment for everybody so that my word of mouth is good. And, I like Nikes. I buy them. I'm not Michael Jordan. I don't buy 100 pairs a year, but I think they like the fact that I buy them. And I tell my friends I like them, and I'm good for 4 pair a year, every single year, no matter what, I buy them. And I try other shoes too, but I always buy my Nikes.
Right.
You know why? Because Nike, I don't even know why they have such a good name, but just do it. That's such good advice. And it made me fall in love with the company, and they've never done anything to make me not like it.
That's deep. You unpack some goodies there. Which, okay, so staying in that same context, you have consulted. You still to this day consult for different companies.
Reluctantly, but for friends, you can't say no.
Yeah, very, very true. And a lot of this you do for your favorite 4-letter word. We won't tell anybody because you like that.
Sure.
Yep.
They can do the same for me.
Yep, exactly. It's a win-win for everybody involved. But my question would be, you've got a lot of people that are looking right now that might be brand new. So when you add in that consumer aspect of customers, what will you say would be some of the litmus test questions? What would be some of the litmus test questions when somebody's looking at
Is this for a person who is already a customer that's decided they want to go share it and make some money, or is this to get a customer?
Both.
Okay. I like this. This is my favorite topic. But I want to bring this back and just put one thing out there because I think it's the crux of it. Business builds at the speed of belief. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Would you agree that most people in the old model, where it was all about recruiting, would come to a meeting, somebody was really, we believed, and our belief, I never sold anything I didn't believe in. I just didn't understand the big picture because I would think other people could do it if I could do it. And I wasn't necessarily doing things that other people could do at that point. So people get excited. We draw the circles, they join. Do you think they really believe they can go do what we did? They hope they can. They're in an excited room, but they don't really believe, if they've never done it before, that they're going to go out and get a lot of people to sign up and buy that big package. Would you agree with that?
I agree.
But they hope so. And then they go talk to all the wrong people, friends, family, people that laugh in their face, throw up all over them. And it kind of reaffirms what they already knew. They didn't think they could do it anyway. So they don't exactly think they quit yet, but they basically now got a whole set of qualifications. I'll talk, Sed's too busy. When I'm successful, I'll talk to Sed. This one, and they basically start recruiting down to somebody that doesn't intimidate them. And suddenly everybody they're talking to thinks it's great, but it has no money. And there's a message there we won't go into. So they really don't have any belief. Now, Sed, what is your favorite product outside of network marketing? It can be a cleaning product. It can be a fit product for your fish tank. It can be anything you want, but your favorite consumable product.
My favorite consumable product outside
your guilty pleasure.
My guilty pleasure would be orange Tic Tacs and Boston baked beans. That's my guilty.
Do you have a favorite cologne or something that's a little pricey?
Yes, Dolce Gabbana. There's a certain style. Okay,
there you go. Now there are colognes that are much less expensive. Would you agree?
Yes.
And neither you or I are going to say that they're good. You can go buy a perfectly nice cologne that's less money. So if you told your friends, this is the one I use and what the price tag was, there are a lot of people that would say that's crazy. That's too expensive. I would never spend that much money. Just as much as people do in network marketing. When I tell people what I spend on shampoo, they're like, but for me, okay. But here's the thing. You use that product, so you believe in it. It doesn't matter. 100 people could tell you it's too much money and you're still going to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take somebody through the process, you want to ask people to try your product. You just want to ask them. And the way that I've always done it is to put it out there. Have you ever heard of? Have you ever tried? And if they say no, say, well, if I send you a video, would you watch it? If I send you some information, would you look at it? And you want to send people something that's compelling. And usually if you've got good, compelling information, I guess with that cologne, it would be, you could tell me about other colognes, but when I wear this one and I go into a club, all the women come running. And I've tried other ones, but like only 20% come running compared to all the women. Every guy in the room is going to say, I want to try that cologne, right?
Right.
Okay. So now, because it's so good for you, you're going to believe in it. If people say, I want it and I love it, their experience builds belief. So you see now, when they go talk to a bunch of friends who say, that's too much money, I would never buy that. It's okay, because they keep talking, because their own experience has given them the belief to know that they believe it's worth it and they can't live without it. And that they'll keep talking till they find other people that feel the same. Because no matter what you're selling, you can have the ugliest pair of green, zebra stripe, polka dotted sunglasses. And if you're willing to keep talking, and you have 10 pair to sell, you'll eventually find 10 people that think exactly the sunglasses I was looking for.
Right.
But so the key in belief is for people to keep talking until they find the people that are looking for them. But they're only going to do it if they really believe in what they're doing. And their own experience with the product gives them the belief to keep sharing that story. And then they'll find other people who have similar experiences, and then they can share the story about, you saw what happened with you and I, and now you love the product. The difference between you and I is you've told 2 friends to call me when you've talked about it, and I got money and you didn't, but you can get money just like me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the foundation, because organic networking only really goes 3 or 4 levels anyway. Everything that we do to drive it deep is tap rooting and skill-based and knowing how to look at the depth of a chart and find out where the activity is happening. But in an organic way, it's basically 4 people sitting around a table. That's what people understand. So if you do get that going on organic, what ends up happening is you go wide with consumers and go deep with salesumers. And the depth, and people make enough of an income, and they can make a really good living if that's all they ever learn. Now, to do the kinds of things you and I have done, that's the leadership development. That's a whole other skill set. But you don't need it to make a living. You need it to build a fortune and to change the world and to transform belief and to lead other people.
You are preaching today. Oh, this is too much. This is too deep.
I'm talking too much, Ernie. I'm sorry.
No, this is too deep.
It's so great to talk to somebody who gets it and understands that it's a simple business, but when you try to put it all on fortune cookies, you miss a lot of the nuance that only time will give you.
Hey, at the end of the day, not many people can say that, first of all, that they can get, an hour and a half of your time to go live to do a video that a lot of people can see. Like they don't get that ability. So I'm honored for this. Like,
I'm
this is
honored
good.
to be asked, because you're my hero.
You know how much I love you. We go way back.
The first time I saw you speak, it's funny, you're in your own fishbowl, and I don't know if you'd ever heard of me. I certainly didn't think anybody ever heard of me. But I was like, God, how do I meet him? Because the room had all those people in it. I'm like, how do I get to meet him? And I remember I don't remember who it was, but somebody said, oh, I know him. I know him, I'll introduce you. And I was like, okay. Right. And then I'm not afraid to call somebody because, and tell them, I think you're amazing, and I would love the opportunity to get anything I can get from you that you think will make me better.
No, and it was never, the funny thing about it, it was always on a friendship. It was never on some, I'm trying to get him in this business, or that's how our relationship has been. For
and
the
yet
past
I would do anything to support any years. I would support you in any business that you did, because I know you pick things that you genuinely believe are going to help people better their lives. And,
right.
And I think it's important to say so, because you won't say this about yourself. You are one of the most multi-talented people I've ever met in the space. I mean, you're a phenomenal online marketer. I still can't make a Weber work. You know, you have an ability with words to preach and inspire. So you are a professional speaker. I'm more of like, I can have a conversation. So you've got all these skills, any one of which you can and have earned six-figure incomes in. Network marketing is really the only thing that allows you to take somebody who doesn't necessarily have those skills and change your life. So for those of you that are watching or ever had the privilege or honor of working with Ced, you need to understand he stays in this space because it's his best opportunity to help you change your world, not because he needs it at this point to change his own. And I think people need to understand that.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. I'm honored that you say that and you think of that about me. So I love it.
Well, I mean, an author now you're going to be too. Is there anything you can't do?
Yeah, there's things I can't do, but we'll talk about that another time. We got stories for days. Oh my goodness, stories for days. But let's go into this question. Let's go into this particular subject here because you and I have been talking about this a lot, especially over the past couple of months. Why is it important in today's market in 2023 and beyond, especially now? Why is it so important for leaders and companies, for that matter, to pay attention to influencers and affiliates? Like, why is it so important in this TikTokable, Instagrammable, Facebookable, YouTubeable environment of these influencers and affiliates? Why is it so important for us to pay attention to them in our space right now?
Because the world has changed. You know, network marketing was very ahead of the game for a long, long time because it forced a lot of people. I'm not saying you have to be online to do it, but now all the ordering, everything's online. It forced a lot of people online. And the pandemic sort of accelerated the rest of the world catching up to that. So now network marketing is not so unique anymore in the way that it does business. There are other opportunities for people to be able to share their experience and their story about a product or a good or a service and generate revenue from it. However, so that really, to me, opens up a bigger opportunity for network marketing if companies and people are wise, because influencers, it's true, they can represent a bunch of different things, but they can't get the leverage more often than not of, you know, multiple spheres of influence and multiple 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, multiple influencers revenue, percentage of all those different people's efforts. They can sell a lot in the influencer affiliate world, but they can't necessarily build a fortune by tapping in to all this other talent where everybody shares. So I think that network marketing, if companies pay attention and they modify enough to create a level of comfort for people to look at the industry differently than perhaps they've looked at it before, or look at it with open eyes and not listen to what they've heard before, I think there's a huge opportunity for network marketing to grow and capitalize on what's going on. I don't find it competitive. I think it's coordinated and complementary. On the other hand, if companies view it as competitive and they try to build walls around people to prevent them from it, people are going to be drawn to it simply because they don't want to feel like they're, you know, like they have no control over their own lives, not because they think it's such a better model. So I think in a world, and that's one reason. And I think the other reason is we all see what's going on in the world today. And person to person, regular people helping regular people to make it better is about the only hope that we have left. Because if we leave it to the powers that be, look at what a great job they've done so far.
Right.
So I think that what we all have to be cognizant of is that network marketing has been around a long time. And sometimes it's a little bit resistant to the innovation it's necessary to make to stay relevant and current. You know, the same thing is true. There are Fortune 500 companies that have gone the way of the wind. And then there are Fortune 500 companies that are continually reinventing themselves to stay at pace with what's happening in the world. And I think that network marketing, because it is so open to everybody, because it's everybody, anybody, whether they have education or money or any of those things, has an opportunity to change their life within it. It's really the great equalizer and has the greatest chance to reach the world at large if we innovate and keep our finger on the pulse of the public, so we know what the world at large is looking for. Because you do a lot better solving problems that people have than trying to get them to buy into the problem you'd like them to have so you can solve it.
Right. Good point. And that leads me to the next thing, and it just popped in my head because of your relationships and based upon something that you just said. We both have a good friend that it took years. I don't 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, something like that. Jeff Olson. What happened with this
$23 million in 7 years.
How much? Say it again.
$23 million in 7 years.
$23 million in 7 years. So for the people that don't know, and I want them to hear from you, Lisa, because I didn't even know the number. $23 million in 7 years of fighting the government, which basically I look at it like it was the new age version of the Amway lawsuit back in the
Amway case. And I want to say, I don't want to be like the government's made up of people, so people make mistakes. So I think that a lot of very good companies are put in a position because of what certain bad actors or bad companies go out and do, and that makes the biggest noise, and then everybody gets painted with that brush. So I'm not here to say that there have not been companies and individuals who have front-loaded people or sold products that without a comp plan baby people wouldn't want to buy. But the industry's gotten a whole lot better, and the quality of the products has gotten a whole lot better, and a whole lot of things have happened with this advent of e-commerce and this going international and this globalization of the past years. So Jeff Olson's company, then called Miriam, now called Neora, was a target of the government because they believed that it wasn't actually customers there. It wasn't actually people wanting this product. It was a bunch of people getting people with stars in their eyes, kind of like you don't really want to buy the McDonald's hamburgers, and we aren't really selling the hamburgers for you to buy them. We're getting you all excited about buying a franchise where you're going to lose your shirt. That's kind of this feeling, and it wasn't true. But the problem is, you can't prove your case until you get to court. And getting to court is very difficult because the government has all these attorneys that work on salary that they can assign to anything. Having been a victim of this, I can say this with distinction. You, on the other hand, have to go hire advocates. And if you want good representation doesn't come cheap. And the government, under the right of discovery, can basically get everything they want to ask you questions about it. So you're operating at a disadvantage where you're going to be shut down a lot of times. If only I can get to court, if only we could get to court, we could prove our case, if only. But Jeff was willing to continue, and a lot of people would cry uncle and say, enough already. Advocare did, and I'm not faulting them. But he was willing because he's such an advocate for the industry, and he's a human person, one person who made a fortune here and believes in it. That's why sometimes I don't like the company by committee thing, because I want that person who knows the value of our space, who understands how it can change lives, who's had their own life changed because of it, because they're going to fight the good fight further, faster, longer, harder, generally. Right. And he was willing to do that. So everything they would shut him down on, he kept coming back and millions of pages of discovery and going through thing after thing after thing, when finally he got to court. And when he got to court, they got some really good definitive decisions out of that case. And one of them is, you need at least 51%. You need to have you need half the people in your database really need to be customers. And I mean customers. And it should be many more. If you're selling legitimate products, it would be. Can you imagine getting into a business and not thinking you should have some customers?
Right.
We're going to open a snow cone shop, but don't worry about selling any snow cones because we got to go find 7 more people to go over to 7 more locations.
Right.
That was number one. Number two was a lot of people get into companies maybe to get a better deal. to get a discount on the product, or thinking they want to pursue it, but they really just want to get their product for free. And, they referred a couple of family members. And for the longest time, the government wanted to count those as distributors who made no money. And that's not really fair, because a host, you can be a wholesale buyer. So they actually have a preferred customer program, which is very good. And I would recommend that companies do that. It's kind of like a smart chip or something like that for customers. Don't force somebody to be a distributor if they don't want to be. But even beyond that, what about all the people that sign up and revert to customer and they don't renew, but you still buy a product? While companies can't count them as customers necessarily, the court determined that's legitimate. So you don't have to count them as distributors either, and then start dividing them into this number that makes it look like nobody makes any money.
Right.
If that makes any sense. So, I'm thrilled that he did that. And
how do you think it helped us, though? How do you think it has helped? Because that was really
I think it gives, companies kind of a roadmap on things that they can now definitively know, because for so long, it's not like, we all know certain things that are definitively a pyramid or a Ponzi.
Right.
But a lot of the rest of it, you don't really know. You're like operating these vague things that have been written that are deliberately vague, because if it's very specific, then you can show you didn't do it. But if it's really vague, you're kind of dancing around the raindrops, hoping with all the good intentions of the world that you get it right. And then they can come back and say, well, you did get it right, but we didn't really mean that anyway, because this vague thing, we can also say this. So it got us some very definitive findings. It reaffirmed some things from the Amway case. So I think it gives people a good blueprint of what to do with companies to be able to have long-term sustainable. I think it gives distributors good things to look for. I think it reaffirms what you were saying. If it's not about building a base of users, consumers, customers, whatever you want to call them, that are independent of the business, it's really probably not a business at all. So I think that gives people a good yardstick for that. I think that it gives us some ammunition for people that say, this is not legitimate. I think it would be fair to say, like all things that are good, there are people that look for loopholes and look for a way to abuse it or look to hide behind it when that's not really what they're doing. But I think network marketing has been around a long time. I think it's changed a lot of lives. And I think we're moving closer to making it better, more defendable, and less likely to be abused or misunderstood by having some really definitive things that we can wrap our head around. And I think that, Jeff also showed the world. I mean, he's pretty articulate guy. He's pretty darn successful. I think that a lot of people gain respect for the industry, much like a Terry LaCour brings to the industry. There are guys that are brilliant who are really working hard to get our industry. Every industry could be a little bit cleaner, but it's every industry the respect it deserves. Because while we can certainly get better, and I advocate for being better, we do not deserve some of the flack that we have had to take for so many years.
No, that's deep. And you're right. I mean, I think it's definitely shined the light a lot deeper. And I don't think a lot of people really understand the power of somebody like a Jeff Olson that fought for so long when most people would have just waved the flag, and how it has helped.
$3 million in attorney's fees, and please.
That's a lot.
7 years, that's what, $3 million a year to
Right.
$250,000 a month commitment to a case that may never end. That's commitment.
Yeah. And within that process of having all that bad press and your business getting touched along the way.
And staying in and rebuilding. But that's what success is made of. And I don't care what kind of success you're looking for. Look, I'm the first to say, if grandma comes to network marketing because she wants to make an extra $300 a month so she can spoil the grandkids and not know grandpa know about that money, and she does it, bully who for her. She's a super success. She should tell that story at the Bridge Club every Sunday. And if she does, she'll probably 3 years later have a whole bunch of grandmas making $300 a month and she's making $5,000.
Right.
But success is willing to do the stuff that's uncomfortable, that you aren't in the mood to do anymore, that if you had it to do all over again, you say, I would have never started this in the first place, but because I did, I'm going to see it through. At the end of the day, if you're the only one left in the race, you still win.
It's a good point. It's a good point. I love it. Wow. That's deep. So let's shift this here really quickly. We're gonna wrap this up here in a few minutes, but I wanted to throw this in because I know that this is a pillar of building. And one of the pillars of building, and I've asked everybody this that I've interviewed, is events. In your tenure, because that's where I met you. That's the first place I met you at a generic event. Why is it so important, though, for people to use those as springboards to help build their business?
Events give people a bigger picture. Events are not about necessarily what's happening from the company on the stage. I mean, a lot of people say, well, if somebody can tell me what product they introduced. And you know what? I friggin' agree. If it was just information, stay at home, read the newsletter, watch it virtually, whatever it is. But it's not the information. It's the camaraderie, communication, relatability, and connectivity of being with people of like mind in an environment where you are shutting out the negativity. How often, I said this at the beginning, but let's put it this way. If 1,000 people are at an event, okay, every single person at the event chose to go. Is there any industry in the world where everybody in that room, everybody that works for that company, they say Southwest Airlines is one of the greatest companies in the world to work for, but I'm pretty sure that not every single person chooses to be there every day. I think a lot of people are there because they need a paycheck. But here, everybody's continually choosing. So you're choosing to get started. You're choosing to keep going. You're choosing to show up. You're choosing to use the product every day. When you choose to go to the event, you're now choosing to be with the best of the best. When you consistently go to the events, people are starting to look at you and identifying you as someone who's going to be the best one day. You are going to meet people you never met. You're going to be able to expand your business by developing relationships with people in other towns when somebody does need something local and you don't want to have to get on a flight to California to work with those 3 new good people. You can tap into Ced's thing that's going on in California because you met each other at an event and you looked in each other's eyes and you know that he's going to treat his people like he would treat his own. And he knows that you're going to do the same for him. You want to 10 times your business. You want your business going on everywhere you're not, even in a virtual world. You're all watching us now wherever you are. But somewhere, if we've been to enough events, there are people that aren't watching this right now because they're in front of people that I trust, know, love, and care about who are building belief in this space for me. So the next week, my job is easier. And that happened because of events. And the thing about events is you have to understand what events are. An event is an event. Thanksgiving is an event. Why? Because it's special. Because the family's getting together. Because if you can't show up, there's going to be experiences that you could never recover. This isn't like you didn't go to the family dinner they have every Sunday. This is the Thanksgiving one.
Right.
That's what events are. And if they're not when you go, ask yourself what you're doing to make the event better. Because your presence it enriches the fabric. And if everybody goes, it's better for everybody. So if you're not having the experience you want, the question is, are you showing up to the places you need to be?
Ooh. If you're not having the experiences you want, ask yourself, are you showing up to the places you need to be? Ooh, that was deep. Bars. You sure you're not a rapper, Lisa? Bars. That was some bars right there. All right, so let's ask you the closing question. I always save the best for last, and I'm sure you're gonna love this one. You get to go as long as you want on this one. The name of the book is called Untold Upline Secrets. And one of the questions that I've asked every single leader here is that if you could take it back, in your case, 30 plus years ago, whether it was 36 years ago, whether it was 30 years ago, whether it was 20 years ago, if you could take it back and look at what is an untold secret or what is something that someone told me to do that I didn't do, that if I had done it, it would have helped collapse my time. I would have been
Built
able
a
to
list.
speed up my business even more.
Built a list. Built a list. Built a list. Built a list. I say this to everybody now because I'm finally doing it. Said you'd be proud. Every person that I've met in the modern era, as I call it, of network marketing, said to me, you need to build a list. Now, I know a lot of people, and I've got this list going around in my head, and and it's not the list of your customers, it's not the list of people the company has that. You can get that. But all the smart marketers build a database of the people that they've encountered. They have an ability to instantly communicate. If said finds something tomorrow that you need to know, I'll know. Even if I wasn't on his list, I know because we're friends. But he's got a ton of people looks up to him, and he is not going to get the word out to 10,000 people. And he can think, even in his own team, if he tells 10 people with big mouths like me, a lot of people will find out. But he can, in 5 minutes, get important information out to the people that he has made a commitment to mentor and teach and coach. If he finds something, if he knows something, if he comes across a new secret, it's a list. And often in network marketing, we're so focused on the business we have and putting people into a category of, well, I love Mary, but Mary's really never going to do this, be in my candle company with me. And I'm not thinking that I'm going to leave my candle company one day, and she's probably not going to leave her company. So I love her, but she's kind of in my business, never going to be in my business. And that's how we tend to think. And it's not about that. It's in my community and being able to connect with my community. And you can't connect with the community if you don't build yourself the list and know people's birthdays. And remember, and depending on yourself or Facebook. So the one thing that if I had it to do all over again, that you've done since you found out about it, and Ted can teach you, is I would always be building a list.
And you would constantly be adding on it. And so you're basically telling us from
I had the
88.
list, but I didn't have the people I met list.
So you're telling us from 88 up until 2024, there's some people that you wish you had on your list that isn't there. That's what you're telling me.
I stay in touch with people better than most.
Yeah.
But I wish that I just had at my hands everybody's like birthday, everybody's name, because they're people that I care about, and I do my best to stay in touch with everybody. And I think I'm better than most for not having a list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, and I don't mean a list like a recruiting list. I've always had that. Every networker has that. But if you want to bring value to the world, and I think that at the end of the day, and we didn't really say this, we said this the whole time, but we never said this just like this. You want more success, bring more value. You want more good in your life, find a way to bring more value to more people. More value to more people. Well, if you want to do a newsletter, if you do a great video and you want to get exposure for it, time is money. And it's even more important than money because we can't get more of it. So an ability to communicate quickly with spheres of influence, quickly with people that would want to get the video you just did. And I know you know who they are because there are people that will send you stuff. I just discovered this video you did 5 years ago.
Right.
So I think that if you really want to bring your utmost to the greatest number of people in the best ability possible, the ability to communicate with those people and to know who those people are and what they like and to be able to track it so that you can serve them better just makes a lot of sense. And I never did it because I was so busy. I thought, well, what do I need it for? I never run out of people to talk to. I can't keep up with people that I know. But in today's world, so many people can talk into a phone and 10,000 people get the message.
That's deep.
You're one of them.
That's a nugget. And I appreciate it. I'm glad that I'm always on your list.
I'm not saying, but you're one of those people who has that list.
Yeah. I could have done a lot better as well, but you're right. I think that's so key because, hey, the name of this game is what? Relationships. That's the name of the game. It's all about relationships. And we never know.
It's about being able to stay on top of and stay in contact with your relationships.
Right. Well, Lisa, listen, we could we could do this for 3 or 4 hours. I already know, because these are the type of conversations that we have anyway when we're just on the phone. Like, so we could just do this forever and ever and ever. And I've got another interview set up in the next 30 minutes. But I tell you, I'm so humbled and happy that you took the time.
It was so much fun. I'm so grateful to be included.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I know that you'll help get the word out, but I'm so happy and humbled that you spent, an hour and a half of your time to really give some nuggets, give some gold to the people that are out there. And I hope everybody that's watched this video, that you understand why we call Lisa the godmother, that you understand that some of the biggest industry, I don't think that there is one top earner in this industry, no matter what the company it is, that doesn't know who Lisa is, and at the same time can use the relationship with her as a bridge to maybe something else, or this contact over here, or help with this product, or help with this comp plan, or help with this company. That's why she's the godmother, because she's always willing to be there and help her friends and treats them all like family. So Lisa, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you here soon. I know that you're going to be in town with Hillary. Huh?
I can't wait to read the book.
Oh, it's coming. It's on the way. It's in editing right now. I'm really excited about it. I'm sure, and we're gonna see each other soon. Because I know you'll be visiting Hillary here real soon. So I'm looking forward to seeing you. So thanks so much, Lisa. You rock.
Thank you.
Love you. We'll chat soon. Okay. All right. Bye.